Continuing our conversation here on the Duncan Duo Show with David Diaz from Waterstone Mortgage. We've talked about the Tampa real estate statistics as well as some legal tips with Sean Yesner early in the show, as well as the RE/MAX National Housing Report. I wanted to move on to talking about for sale by owners. There's an interesting trend when the real estate market does really well, and a lot of sellers decide that they're going to go it on their own. And there are some that can do it because they're skilled and they understand marketing and sales, and then there's some that flop really bad. Most end up hiring a realtor, but there's certainly some that go out and do it on their own. But what I want to talk to you about now is buying a for sale by owner. Not just if you're doing a for sale by owner and you should list it with a broker, but more buying a for sale by owner. If you're a buyer out there thinking about buying a for sale by owner, there are a few things that are going to be different. And I think that first and foremost, whenever there's an agent involved, there's a certain level of experience of getting through a real estate transaction, knowing the proper steps, the timelines, the contractual language. Sellers generally will work with an agent. Most sellers will cooperate in terms of paying a fee to a buyer's agent. What they're wanting to avoid paying is the listing agent fee, so they decide to do it themselves. You shouldn't think of the home any differently. I mean, the home itself is still the home. If it's the home for you, then you should do everything you can to help buy it. The one struggle that we see a lot, though, with for sale by owners is pricing is off, and it's generally because they've either heard the right price from a broker and don't want to believe it because they think their house is the Taj Mahal, which it's not, or they've just gotten bad advice, or they're looking at information that doesn't really tell the true story about their home. So one of the struggles we see a lot of times when we're representing a buyer buying a for sale by owner is the seller is generally less flexible in price. And that's not always the case, but it's a case a lot of the time. The reason that they're avoiding paying the broker fee is because they probably don't have a lot of equity, and their margin is thin, so they have to price it at a certain number. Brokers may not want to take it, so they list it at that number, and ultimately it may be the right home for you, but if it can't get appraised, it can't close, right?
You can't get the appraisal, and that's whether you have an agent or not. I mean, it's what we've seen a lot with these multiple offer situations, and it's something that nationwide is an issue just because of seemingly the lack of supply nationwide going on.
One other thing that you have a challenge with when buying a FSBO or property disclosures, a lot of for sale by owners don't know the disclosure forms or the needed forms or the required forms to use. So as a buyer, if you're working with an agent, I'm sure the agent will make sure to help you cover that. If you're not working with an agent, you want to make sure to know what property disclosure forms are needed so that you know what is wrong with that home or what they're disclosing is or isn't there with the home.
And boy, there are lots of things that just go on behind the scenes that any typical buyer or seller doesn't know that either the agent does or the mortgage person does or whatever. So here's what you can run into on a for sale by owner. Again, it can work as you've mentioned, but there's so much more. So if you have a buyer that's going in possibly with or without representation, and he's trying to cut every corner also, and the seller's trying to cut every corner and trying to cut the person out.
There's a lot of drawbacks. We're going to continue this. Okay. We're going to go through all these drawbacks and continue this conversation after a quick break here on the Duncan Duo Show.